committee meeting. Broadcast of the meeting, members of the public may watch the meeting live via computer or smartphone by going to the district's website, vwd.org/meeting, and clicking on the live icon. However, they will not be able to participate in the meeting remotely. Listening to the meeting, members of the public may listen to the meeting live on their phone by dialing 888-788-0099 or 877-853-5247 toll free. When prompted, enter the meeting ID and passcode displayed on the district's website. Do we have any public comment?
No, we do not.
I'm shocked. Items for discussion. Item number 1, capital improvement annual report.
So as the board's aware, per policy, we track our capital improvement program. Yes.
I got no visualization that the board has.
Turn the monitor. Yeah.
Okay, see if that helps.
Did it come up? I'm gonna give it a second.
There it is.
All right. So on with the show. So as the board's aware, per district policy, or we basically do a quarterly update at every quarter to the engineering equipment committee, and an annual update for the capital facilities is brought forward to the board. So since the quarterly update ended in July, it takes us a while to get the information together. At this quarter, which is the first quarter of the first fiscal year, we provide the annual update for last fiscal year, both to the committee. This also will be brought forward to the full board per policy. With that, I'll introduce the engineering team to take it over.
Thank you, Assistant General Manager Gumpel and directors. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to just recap fiscal year 22-23 capital facilities update. And I'm going to be talking about different projects today that are in construction and in design primarily. And in 22-23, the district's total CIP budget was approximately $48 million. And out of that amount, capital facilities had a total construction contract total of just over $12 million and a total design contract of just over $4 million. Of that CIP construction spending, the actual dollars spent over the year, capital facilities fluctuated throughout the year in different months, as you see by the bar graph. But for the cumulative total, we spent roughly $2.7 million of actual construction dollars over the year. The completed projects that we realized in 22-23 were 4 projects here, including the retaining wall at Meadowlark that is providing a space for the Tesla battery pack, MRF tertiary structural rehab and repairs, which was a coating and lining primary job at Meadowlark, Sage Canyon tank refurbishment, which was a full exterior and interior refurbishment of the steel tank at Sage Canyon, and then the 2021 sewer lining and rehab program. In total, the contracts just over $3 million in total. And looking at the change order percentages, which we always do for all of our projects, on average, between the 4 projects, we realized a negative 12.7% change order, which is a bit skewed because the Meadowlark tertiary structural rehab and repairs project, we ended up removing a large part of that scope out of that project, which resulted in a credit to us. So typically we average between 2 to 5% of change order values on any given CIP, and that's about what we saw here, notwithstanding the tertiary structural rehab and repair. So this value kind of skewed us off a little bit, and looking at a longer 10-year horizon, we tally up the averages of change orders. So over a 10-year period, we executed 176 change orders on all of our CIP projects, and averaged out to in total $826,000 in change orders, which equates to 1.7% of contract value over that 10-year period of time. And then if you just do a direct correlation with what an assumption of an industry standard change order average on CIP projects, and we assume that to be a 15% value at other agencies, they may realize, that would escalate that change order value to over $7 million in that same construction contract value. So in total, we're when you take the delta between the two, we have saved the district with these assumptions roughly $6.5 million in 10 years' time. For design engineering, we opened up 4 new contracts, and the 4 contracts which were awarded in 22-23 include the meters testing and maintenance building, Coronado Hills tank interior and exterior refurbishment, which actually got combined with Richland 1 tank exterior refurbishment for just over $10,000 in total, and then the Rock Springs valve replacement for just over $16,000 in total. New contracts totaled $213,000, and total design contracts in progress from carryover from the prior years, we're still doing over $1.5 million. So while it looks like it was kind of a slow year in design, we had a lot of carryover projects which kept us busy in design. The active CIP projects, including those carryovers, are listed in this table, which includes the Tres Amigos replacement phase 1, the Metal Arc conversion to sodium hypochlorite, the chlorine contact tank expansion project at Metal Arc, Las Posas 10-inch water main replacement, Rock Springs valve, Wolf waterline improvements, and meters testing and maintenance building, as I mentioned in the past slide. We've paid to date roughly $970,000, which equates to about 63% of these total contracts value.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Are we doing any of these designs in-house?
That's a good question. And we had a large role in-house design of the Rock Springs valve replacement, although we did end up getting a consultant on board to help us with design services related to planned production, like drafting services and that type of thing. The staff is really carrying the ball. As you can see, the contract amount on that is only $16,000. So it's not a huge amount. It's largely just talking about planned production, which we don't really have the capabilities to do here on that scale. So we are running some other projects in-house. The 2021 sewer lining and rehab was completely performed in-house, and that project was finalized in construction last year. These ones are, that project is not on this list because we're just talking about design right here. But we do, and another one which is not currently ongoing is the Ranchero Sewer project, another smaller project. That one we are going to carry forward in this current fiscal year in-house as well.
I got a question.
Yeah.
How many design consultants do you typically have access to?
We have about five professional engineering design as needed consultants on our rotation list, but we have many more than that across various disciplines. But for just general engineering services, we have about 5 consultants that we fall back on our as needed list for smaller contracts, which we can award. Once we get into the larger contracts, we go through the formal request for proposals for those professional services.
What's the threshold for doing them? Or size, contract size?
The as needed contract threshold is 150,000. Anything over 50 requires board action for approval. Anything under 50 can receive GM approval for award.
And then we go by 2 different phases. If it gets over 150, we're going out for RFP. And then if it's a significantly larger, whether it's 250 or 350 design effort, then we cast the net a little wider.
Okay, thanks.
Good questions. Just another historic spending. for CIP going all the way back to fiscal year 2012 and 13. Just like to note that since my time here in 2019, we've been ramping up in capital facilities and design spending. And this tracks really well with where we're at today in our construction awards, and getting some large milestone operational priority projects out to construction, which started back in the 2019, 2020, 2021 timeframe. Those are actually finally getting realized now in construction. Projects in construction over the last fiscal year 22-23. As I mentioned, the in-house design 2021 sewer lining and rehab was completed in March. Meadowlark tertiary structural rehab and repairs, that was just actually recently completed in June, just before the start of the current fiscal year. Palos Vista motor starters upgrade, I have good news. This one is now breathing new life. We expect to complete this one after a bit of a delay. We expect to complete this in September next month. Sage Canyon tank refurbishment was another large priority project, and we experienced some delays in that kind of throughout the pandemic a little bit, and completed that earlier this fiscal year in February, last fiscal year, I'm sorry. And the Meadowlark retaining wall for the Tesla batteries was completed in March. And the 16-inch emergency bypass, along with a 12-inch fail-safe pipeline rehab and repairs, big priority operational project, is currently in progress. We're nearing completion. And we expect completion will be attained in October of this year. All in total, just under $5 million of completed projects in the last fiscal year. And just some historical annual budget versus actual CIP spending, and how we utilize those funds each year. And in the last fiscal year 22-23, I have a total CIP capital facilities budget of nearly $30 million. We realized an actual spending of $19.5 million, which equated to about a 66% utilization of that budget. And in that 5-year average leading up to last fiscal year, including last fiscal year, we averaged about just under $25 million, $24.3 million in annual budget. And we realized a spending of, on average, about $14 million, about 58% utilization. So last year, we actually increased our average utilization by about 8%. So something that's noteworthy there. And then just some recap on some of the projects which were completed. Sage Canyon tank. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see a before picture of the exterior. And then on the bottom left is a after picture of the refurbished tank. The inside, you can see the steel rafters on the roof, which underwent either repair or replacement throughout the project. And then the nice new coating on the interior. This is a 3.7 million gallon steel reservoir. And this was completed in February.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Has anyone ever thought of painting the tanks in sort of a camouflage colors so it blends in with the background?
We have a district standard of this green color you see before you. And I'd kind of defer that to AGM Gumpel. We do have options on colors, but
There's plenty of options in colors, but what a lot of agencies do is they would go out to the local community service group, like the county group or the city group or the HOA, if it's an HOA, and ask them for the colors. But when you open it up, sometimes they make the wrong choice.
Oh,
basically.
yeah.
So, but the one thing with the standard colors, over time, the standard color doesn't change. And when anytime there's graffiti, it's easy for us to get that standard color. Even though it does oxidize and change in tone, it's still a better match than some custom color. So we stock, I believe, the standard color. Yep. We stock the standard color to help with that. And we do run into cases where our tanks do get graffitied or tagged. So it makes it a lot easier for us to house and stock one color.
The next project of significance, we completed final design in the last fiscal year of the Metal Arc Failsafe Buena Reach project. Directors just took action on this on the last board meeting to award construction. This project is moving into construction. We are currently getting under contract right now. We expect a start probably next month in September and completion in the March timeframe of 2024. Just as a reminder, the ductile iron pipe of the existing failsafe is corroded and at risk of breakage based on history of breaks, and the picture there before you is a piece of the removed ductile iron pipe from 2018.
Since the is that fused?
It is. It's going to be a jointless pipe, fused joint pipe, and won't be subject to the same corrosion that ductile iron encounters in this corrosive environment. So another big milestone project, the Montiel Lift Station Force Main Replacement Project. Again, directors took action on this also at the last meeting. So we completed final design in fiscal year 22-23, and we look forward to completing construction of the Force Main and Gravity Improvements Project in this current fiscal year. Some of the photos before you just show the Nordall Shopping Center on the top right, and on the bottom right is the existing Montiel lift station as it is today, and the existing easement shown on the bottom left, which you can actually see from the SR 78, which is between Caltrans right away and the Costco that's there. You can see from the freeway. We expect work on this to be starting early in September on the Force Main improvements. They're going to be starting in the Nordall Shopping Center and working towards the lift station.
Is that picture on the manhole? Is that the first gravity portion of the existing? Is that with the Force Main ties in?
No, this is on Center Drive, where this is actually the existing gravity system that's in the Nordall Shopping Center, but
Something further south.
oh yeah. So that's a great question. The Montiel lift station is here, and the existing Force Main breaks to gravity today about right here, right on this side of Nordall, on the intersection of Montiel and Nordall. And
that manhole's further in.
Yes, the manhole you see right here is located about right here.
I think Verizon's just forward.
Yep.
Yep.
Verizon.
But you're going to be
All
lengthening the Force Main.
Yeah, one of the benefits of this project is we're eliminating a future gravity replacement project to increase capacity but by bypassing this gravity system with our Force Main. So we're lengthening the Force Main to eliminate that future CIP.
That was one of the good ideas the CIP group came up with is when we looked at this project, the CIP group looked at different offsets, and the entire gravity main through the shopping center, which is anywhere from 8 to 12 foot deep, would have to be replaced and upsized. Now it doesn't. Instead, you're putting in, it's like 4 foot deep, 4.5 foot deep.
Right. Pressure. Yep.
6 inch pipe.
6 inch.
Yeah. So instead of putting a big 12-inch pipe, 12 foot deep. So,
Mhm.
so it ended up being an offset, even though we're spending a lot of money on the project, we probably saved the equal amount of money not putting in the sewer.
Tres Amigos waterline replacement phase 1, a bulk of the design effort was completed in the last fiscal year. We've been in a period of acquiring new permanent easement acquisitions so that we can realign the existing pipeline away from Bonsall Farms. It's actually a better alignment for the district and operations to access the line in the future. This line has a long history of breakage, and it's difficult to repair. Original installation of this steel pipeline was in the 50s and the 60s. It's actually a steam pipeline. It's a very thin wall steel and very difficult to repair. Ed Pedrazi is here, and I know he's very, very happy we're moving forward with this one. This project, we can expect to go out to construction basically at the start of 2024. We're going to wrap up final design the rest of this year, and then we're going to go out this current fiscal year into construction. Another priority project is the Metal Arc chlorine contact tank expansion. This is grant funded project, and it's the existing chlorine contact tanks at Metal Arc provide a bottleneck really of the plant's ability to go from 5 MGD to 6.5 MGD. This project will allow that increased capacity to occur. We're currently moving into 90% design and working with a design consultant to work through some comments at the 60% level. We expect final design at the end of this calendar year. Moving into 2024, we'll be going out to bid.
Is the plant permitted at 6.5, or is that something that?
No, that's something we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to open the permit, and there's some pitfalls with opening the permit with the regional board. And also we'll have to look at obviously doing a new chlorine, a modal contact time study to make sure that it can handle the 6.5.
And the last project of significance in construction is the 16-inch emergency bypass, which we're also rehabilitating the 12-inch fail-safe, which is just parallel to it, shown by the orange and green line work on the exhibit. This is rehabilitation of roughly 4,500 feet of the emergency bypass sewer and about 3,500 feet of the 12-inch fail-safe. Both of these pipelines are critical infrastructure assets to the district, and both upstream and downstream connections have been made to date. And those are two really big events of significance for this project. And so we're nearing completion, probably in the October timeframe. And all we have left to do is some CIPP relining on this job. And then lastly, the big one, the land outfall parallel sewer section A. We have advertised and selected land outfall program manager, project manager, who is going to take this project into planning and design phase. And it's going to be a multi-year program. Very excited to get this one off the ground after many, many years of delay. So, and that is really the recap of capital facilities, fiscal year 22-23, and I can take any questions directors may have at this time.
Oh, very good.
All right, well, thank you very much.
All right, moving on. Quarterly operation and maintenance report.
Yeah, so as the board's aware, every quarter the board packet includes an operations and a metrics report, basically a full O&M report. We've been asked in the past, both by board members and also by our general manager, that every now and then we should highlight this at the equipment committee. Maybe if there's some significance in an event, we could highlight it at the board level. But this is really that opportunity. So about once a year, we're planning on highlighting this at the engineering and equipment committee, unless the committee members want a more either more information or a higher frequency. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ed Pedrazi.
All right. Thank you, AGM Compel. Directors, just want to preface this that I am not an engineer, but I play one on TV. I'm here today. So as James mentioned, just going to give you a little bit more in-depth on the quarterly O&M metrics report. Is it not forwarded? Yeah. Gotcha. Wasn't on my screen. And I'm just going to touch a little bit on where we're getting this data and what we're doing with it besides showing the board. So the first one, this is actually the report that the board saw the first meeting of this month. So it is quarterly. It takes us a little while to get all the data together, put it together. So we try to get it to you the second meeting of the month, but I was gone most of first part of July of my daughter's wedding. So you got it the first meeting in August. The sewer line inspection, CCTV, we do have a goal that we try to meet of about 180,000 linear feet of our gravity lines every year. On top of that, we also do some of the new construction acceptance for the 1-year warranty. They do some of that work as well. And we have a CCTV van with a crew that goes out. And I should note that all of the crews are trained. to look at the videos of the pipeline and determine at what level, if there's cracks, if there's offsets. So they're all trained to give that a number, and then they work with the engineering department, and every year, they, especially with Ryan, they work and put together a CIP that the board then sees, and we go out and we do relining or replacement to fix these problems that they see with the CCTV camera. It's part of our district's sewer system management plan, which we are updating for the new WDR waste discharge requirements. That's May of 25. So I'll be retired, but we're working on that already so that it's ready to go by then. Smoke testing footage. Crews were out actually today, so they're meeting that goal of 3 per fiscal year or calendar year. And what we're doing with the smoke testing is they're forcing smoke into the sewer lines up the customer's lateral, and then we should be seeing smoke coming up out of their vents. But we're looking for illegal connections. We're looking for broken sewer laterals. A lot of times, all that we find is they have a cracked or missing cap for their clean out. And as a courtesy, we will go ahead and provide them one. A lot of times the guys just put it on right there, then and there for the customers. If there's anything beyond that, they bring it to me and we discuss ways of reaching out to that customer, letting them know, hey, this is an illegal connection. And we try to work with them on giving them a timeline to have it repaired. The whole purpose for this is when we have storms like we just had on Sunday, we do get I&I inflow and intrusion. So the inflow would be caused by an illegal connection where maybe they've got their storm drain system off their house going right into the sewer like it shouldn't be. So we try to repair that. We have, besides smoke testing to try to find areas of I&I, we actually have sewer flow meters that are populated throughout the district that we monitor. They'll set off alerts for us. We only had a couple go off on Sunday. One was a sensor. It wasn't actually a real thing, which was good because we were afraid we might be spilling. And the other one was on the outfall project that Ryan just mentioned. We're excited to finally see that move forward. These atmospheric rivers that we've had, that's our pinch point. You know, it's an area where we've had a couple of spills this year. We normally don't spill at all, but the atmospheric rivers caught us. So this is part of our program to try to avoid any kind of a spill.
And if I may, so one of the good news in the results of this is with the CCTV program, which translates into sewer I&I fixes that Ryan's group does, and the smoke testing, we're seeing real results down at Encina. So we saw from the board members who are Director Hans, you may remember that Vallecitos had the smallest increase of the Encina increases, and that was largely due to less concentration, but also less flow in sewer. We have more customers, but our flow rate went down by, I forgot the percentage, but it was over 10%. A lot of it was the result of the San Marcos Interceptor project, the multiple sewer I&I projects, and operations continued maintenance of the project. So we are actually seeing results, and those results of that investment that the board approves are actually saving our ratepayers money. Unfortunately, EWA's costs went up, but our costs went up less. So
yeah, it has been a great collaboration over the last probably at least 15 years that we've been working with engineering and solving these trouble areas, and actually moving some of our lines were right in the creek. And so we've moved them out, and there's still more work to be done, but it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yeah.
How often do you see problems in the house laterals between the property line and the main? Is that a pretty rare occurrence?
We don't see their lines cracked very often. Most of the problems that we go out and assist with, we don't typically do the work for them, is that they have roots intrusion, or they'll have they'll have an offset. Sometimes you get a plumber that's trying to sell them a whole new lateral when all they really needed was a quick cleaning. So
and the customer is responsible out to the main,
all the way to our connection.
Yeah.
Yep, all the way to the connection of our main. So we always try to give them good advice and help them find what's going on. And sometimes if it is out something out in the street, we'll assist them somewhat, as much as we can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks.
Sewer line cleaning. So the board has done a great job in allowing us to maintain our 3 jet rotters that two of them are combination trucks, so they have the vacuums on them, and then one was it's a different vehicle. It is a jet rotor only, so it's a little bit smaller. It doesn't have the big vacuum tank on it, and especially with the way they're designing streets and roundabouts and all those, the smaller communities. That's proven to be a great purchase for the district. It can get in and out of there without running over the curbs. And honestly, we decided to go that route because we're doing a really good job right now keeping these lines clean, and there's less debris that we have to vacuum out. So they're nailing it every year as far as what is in our district's SSMP, the Sewer System Management Plan. And because of that, we are actually ahead of the curve. This new waste discharge requirement that just went into effect June 5th of this year is going to require everybody else basically to step up to our level. So they want to see zero spills. That's their thing. There's no allowable limit or allowable level of spills per mile of pipe. They want zero. And I'm happy to say in the last 10 years of spills that we have had, only 850 gallons has spilled due to lack of maintenance. The rest have been contractors either throwing debris in or hitting our lines, or it was a capacity issue because of atmospheric rivers. So that's something to be pretty proud of. We were discussing at the last board meeting, I think, about the Lake San Marcos litigation, and the third party person that was the consultant that was working on that. When I spoke with him about our program, he said he'd been doing that for 30 years and had gone over 100 different sewer systems, and he said we had the best program he'd ever seen. So
Very good.
We still got blamed for.
Yeah.
of course we do.
And that was the expert consultant that Neil Myers hired to
Yeah.
defend us. But yeah, and our portion of the our district portion of the Lake San Marcos had nothing to do with the actual amount of solids or guilt that the district had.
They
So
just used a standard
um
kind of infiltration figure or something.
the council, Neil Myers told us that one of the statute that the arbitrator used was the ability to pay. So the district had some ability to pay above and beyond our actual liability.
Mhm.
Didn't realize that was a-
So sounds like our future of our electricity bills. Odor complaints. This is a very impressive slide. So obviously sewer creates odors. We do our best to keep these down to a minimum. We track all odor complaints and address them immediately. You'll notice that Metal Arc does not have a single one in the last 12 months. And I know you've been down there
Yeah.
and you've seen the work that's been done, both the engineering of the odor scrubbers and then how hard the operators down there work to combat any odors. And you have a fellow board member that lives right there and he says he's never had a complaint. So that having a wastewater plant with homes right up to the gate and not getting complaints is amazing. In the collection system, we have been working hard. Our lift stations, we have odor scrubbers at the lift stations, obviously. Director Hernandez will remember that LS1 right on San Marcos Boulevard for many years, the wet well was wide open. It was not enclosed. And Director Martin used to complain about it. We'd get complaints from there. We sealed that up. We put an odor scrubber there and we've not received a complaint since. So there's been a lot of work over the years on the engineering side, helping us with that. And we are still working on ways to improve. We're at LS1, we inject a bioxide chemical. Actually, each of our lift stations, we have the ability to inject a bioxide chemical, which allows the bacteria to use that instead of the sewage to get what it needs, and it won't release hydrogen sulfide gas that way. But it's a difficult balance. If we inject too much going down to the plant, then we're sending them too many nitrates. So we have to be careful with that. The crews do a great job.
Do you know where these locations are offhand?
Where each of the, so there we have We have actual odor scrubbers in each of the lift stations, and then we have carbon structures in various locations throughout. Probably one of the most noticeable would be as you're going down Rancho Santa Fe, right before Via Alondra on the right-hand side. There's that nursery right there. Yeah, we actually installed before Red Wing. We actually installed 2 odor scrubbers right there. It's where we just had that emergency manhole repair that the board approved the work on that the other night. We took care of a lot of odors there by sealing the manholes, and then also forcing the air over into those odor scrubbers, and those are.
Is that what these particular ones?
Actually, I don't know where those 2 complaints were from. I'd have to go back through the logs. A lot of times we'll record it as a complaint, and even if it wasn't ours. So we've gone out and these may have been, I remember one of them the one in April, I believe, was a complaint that turned out to be something doing with the storm drain. And it was just the temperatures were starting to warm back up, and we get complaints, and we still run on them and we still record them. And then in Maximo, we record what we found, what we did.
Yeah.
And then we report back to the customer that did the complaining. Lift station sewer flow is pretty self-explanatory. You can tell by the weather with the big red line there, lift station number 1, whether or not Meadowlark is calling for that extra flow. You see us head into December, January, February, March. We had the atmospheric rivers January through March, so we did not want to be pumping anything down to the plant as it was overwhelmed. There is a little bit of pumping going on in through that period, and that was actually the plant trying to relieve pressure off the outfall so that we wouldn't spill. We were successful several times in keeping us from spilling, but once in January and once in March, the plant was overwhelmed. They were filling empty basins trying to keep them from spilling. So we said, well, we'd rather spill on the outfall than destroy the plant. So
Is lift station 3 out of San Luis?
lift station 3 is in San Alejo, and it really does not have a lot of sewer going to it. The sewer shed there is very small. I think James originally Harmony Grove was supposed to send the sewer this way, and that's why it was built that size. I think.
Not quite Harmony Grove, but so lift station 3, I mean, it's called lift station 3 because it's our 3rd major lift station, but the actual reason it's called lift station 3 was there's going to be 2 additional lift stations to the east to create to capture Valley. I forgot the name of it now, but there was another 1,500 unit development just about a mile east of Quest Haven along that corridor, and then another 800 unit development. Both of those went kind of disappeared during the recession and has not come back. So lift station 3 is really oversized as far as the lift station, but the pumps that are put into it are appropriate. It's just there's a lot of room there. So
Yeah.
What's the status of those developments?
they haven't come back since the recession and the county's new 2020 plan, because those are county areas unincorporated. They still allow for some development there, but I think, for example, the 1,500 unit development went down to 400, and the 800 I think stayed around 300 or 400 also. But there's no group that it has an ownership of all the properties to do a master development at this time, at least that I know of.
The water purchase from the water authority, this also includes water from the desalination plant and from Levenheim Water District. The red line was the amount of water we purchased back in 2013, and when they started to push all of the drought regulations in California, that was the baseline that they used that you were trying to stay under. And as you can see, for the most part, except for a couple of times in 2022, we stayed below that line. So even though we have more people, people are conserving more, and it's certainly a way of life. You hear from Chris all the time about all the new regulations coming our way. So this graph will change over the years. Water quality samples. This is one I wanted to address because it always looks like we're taking way more samples than required. And I had a discussion with Sean Askin, our water system supervisor, about this. So the required, the blue, is actually what is required per state regulations. So it's based on the number of customers we have and or the number of service connections, whichever one causes us to take more samples is the one you have to follow. But our local Division of Drinking Water engineer has requested additional samples monthly because we have so many different pressure zones, and you're really supposed to be representative of every pressure zone, and we have over 30, which would mean a lot more samples per week. So that's why you see that there. They're not actually taking an excessive number. We're meeting the state requirements and then the additional requirements that our local division has requested of us. Water quality complaints, various reasons we get these complaints. I will say that about 95% of the time, it's something within the customer's household. We respond to it regardless, and we also record it as a complaint. So even if it turns out it has nothing to do with our distribution system, it is logged as a complaint. Color is a real common one that we see in a customer's house. Sometimes they have an air problem, so it's kind of cloudy. They may have something going on in their system. A lot of times the color is caused actually by their saltwater system for soft water. And when they change out the zeolite and they do the exchange, sometimes that will cause a color problem. Taste and odor. A lot of times the odors actually are not coming from the water, they're coming from the drain.
Dried up trap.
Yep. So, and a lot of times especially in the kitchen, I've pulled mine apart. It's really gross. It's like a black slimy bacteria that grows. And when you run the water, it stirs up the air as it's pushing that water through, and you get that odor right back up in your face, the bathroom as well. So we tell the people, it used to be, we would say, you've got to call a plumber, but we give them really just the basic advice. If you pour a cup of bleach down there, let it sit for a couple minutes, rinse it out, it gets rid of that. It's going to come back because you're still putting food or bacteria down the drain. But that's what most of the time, 99% of the time, really the taste and odor complaints are from that. Sediment is usually from a main break. It means we've stirred things up and we go out and we flush the line clean. Valve turning and maintenance. So we started doing valve turning probably close to 20 years ago. We actually got a valve turning truck and a crew. It's made a big difference for not only for having successful shutdowns to, those valves are now being turned on a regular basis, at least once every 2 years. It actually shows us where we have broken valves. So those are critical that we get those in the budget and replace them. And we are accelerating the number of valves per year that we do. And I'll get that on another slide. But this is now actually required by the State Water Resources Control Board for each agency to have a valve turning and maintenance program.
It's like a pretty high goal, 50%.
We typically achieve it. We've had some problems with the truck was down for a while, and then actually the valve turning machine itself was down for a while. And I always give the guys grief. I said, back in my day, we turned them by hand, but it's also actually the valve turning truck itself has the arrow board on it. So it's a lot safer. They're directing traffic around it. We just ran out in the street with a valve key and did it. So they're a lot safer than I used to be. Valves replaced. So here's where we're trying to meet valves replaced. It's per fiscal year, and I don't think this slide is actually correct because I know in 22-23 we wound up replacing more than 13, but we are accelerating it now. Instead of 20 valves as of this fiscal year, this is the end of last fiscal year. We are now doing 30 is what we're going to try to do. And then I believe Eric's sitting behind me working with the asset management program to go even beyond that. But that's going to require an annual CIP where we get a construction crew, outside construction crew. And we don't have enough staff to do more than about 30 per year. Water main breaks. I mean, knock on wood. Yeah, obviously we track that, and it changes from year to year. It's showing 33 in 2022. The year before that we had only 18. So far in 23, we've had 11. We've had at least one more since this slide was developed, and we're working on another one yesterday. So there's two more, and then the next slide. No, I was going to show you the coming up slide for fire hydrant hit. Right before coming in here, we had a fire hydrant hit, and according to Kevin, it appears the lady had a little too much wine in broad daylight, and I think she got the silver bracelets. So
Wasn't worried. Be a lot of fire hydrants since between 1 a.m.
Yeah.
1 a.m. Yeah, closing time at the bar is like 2 o'clock. Yeah.
Water main breaks, it could be called the road reconstruction program.
Yeah, too many of those.
With the new roads that we build.
Yeah, a lot of that is because of the concrete treated base that city of San Marcos required for a lot of these developments. So the water pressure hits that, and then it sheets right underneath the asphalt and just rips up everything. You might have just a small localized area that got excavated, but it shoots all that sand out and ripples the road. As the board's aware, Apple Wild and Echo Lane, I think, were two that were $100,000 a piece to repair because it just destroyed tons of road. So
That's
not,
the biggest cost, biggest part of the cost.
yep, not a lot of fun to have to pay those bills. So the sanitary sewer overflows will no longer be allowed to call them SSOs. The state, with all the different things they're doing with their updated WDR, everything's a sewer spill now. So it won't be an SSO. In the last 12 months, we've only had two, and both of those were due to atmospheric rivers, the one in January and the one in March. Service line leaks, kind of hit or miss. Some are caused by contractors hitting them. A lot of them are caused by just, we have really corrosive soil. So the copper lines in those areas, when they do fail, we'll go pull a whole new service line from the main to the customer's meter, and we drop an anode. So, lasts a whole lot longer. But copper is certainly far better than the poly lines that were installed. We had so many leaks on that, a couple of different manufacturers, Yardley and is it Greenberg? Orangeburg. I think it was a color. Class action lawsuits against those companies. And when I started here in 1989, we had over 10,000 service lines that we had to replace.
Wow.
We're done. I didn't think that would ever happen in my career. We finished replacing them about 4 years ago.
Okay.
So that's half of our, what are we, 22,000 service connections around there?
Phew.
Yeah, so yeah, and that was all done in-house construction. That was not contractors that were hired. We did, our construction crew did all
Very
that.
good, very good.
Yep.
Fortunately, we traded the workload and replacing service lines, but now we're trying leaks.
So hit fire hydrants, we already kind of talked about this. It's it's interesting. Most of them are at night, and several of them have been due to imbibing alcohol or something else they shouldn't be. That's just for your information on that. San Elijo Pump Station, OMWD water purchase. So you'll see we were not hitting our target at all for many months, and it was actually about a 12-month period that we were down with that. I guess it was 11 months. It was mentioned in previous slides, the Sage Canyon tank refurbishment. We could not take water from that pump station during that time, or we would blow up our system. There just wasn't enough ways to control, as we had to run everything backwards. And also what we're seeing now, so we're not quite meeting our target, is Olevenheinz really having some trouble with their plant. And I think it might still be down right now. I know it went down a few weeks ago.
What's the problem?
Their first problems they were having back in April and May was they weren't able to handle the source water that was coming in from the water authority. Can't remember if it was too much algae in it. I think that's what it was, because they're a submerged membrane treatment plant. But they didn't really share too many details on what's going on. I think they're having to do a refurbishment right now, so they've been offline. The desalination plant, we added the green part of this chart, probably 6 or 7 months ago. Glenn asked me to add that in there. So that's the delta for the settlement we had with the San Diego County Water Authority. So obviously during the winter, we can't take a lot of water from the desal plant. But during summertime, when it's nice and hot, they really crank that up and we're able to get some of that delta. So I don't see any reason why we won't reach that 4,600 acre feet by 2031. I think it'll be long before then. So the customers like that water. The water operations guys really like that water. It's the freshest you're going to get,
Yeah.
and it's good water quality. And everybody that gets it, you know, when a plant goes down, they notice it. So they definitely do.
But that's so pricey.
Yeah, it's a bit expensive.
I think that's the last.
This is the last slide of the metric support. So the wastewater flow summary report is actually one that Director Elletharp requested probably a year or so ago.
I know it's a lot of extra work, but
It's just data. I mean, we have all the data, and it's just a matter of gathering it together and putting it into this form. So shows you the wastewater flows that's going to Meadowlark and to Encina, and then if we're pumping it all to Encina on the failsafe line, or out to the ocean on our failsafe line, that's in there as well. And that line we prefer not to use. It means we're treating more than our customers can use. Mars full, and it's also until recently with the projects coming up a little dangerous. As you remember, that line has detonated on us a couple of times and been pretty disastrous failures. In fact, the slides that were in the slide deck today and the other night showing that ductile iron pipe, that was the failures that we had on that line.
the sewer bypass line, what material is that? Is that the techite?
What material is sewer bypass line?
The 16-inch bypass.
Yeah, it's some ductile, but primarily techite,
Yeah.
which we will be lining now.
Well, that's a structural liner, right?
Yeah, but it's techite, yes.
Yeah, that's another pipe of which we
Which
do
you-
not speak.
Yeah, we've had, I think, 3 breaks on
Knocking-
that line as well. So
We're not using it, but still it doesn't matter. That's the last slide on the quarterly O&M metric report. Do you have any questions on that, or?
No, excellent report. Wonderful, very
Really
informative.
appreciate the information you put together. It's useful.
The work that our operations staff does is I think first class, and it definitely is in the staff report for the board. But we figured this is a good place to highlight it.
I appreciate it.
Very good.
And then just real quick, give you an update on where we're at with the Helopod, which originally was called the heli hydrant project. And then all it is we went with a different manufacturer that actually saving us and our partners about $100,000 to go with a different manufacturer. So that's kind of what they look like. The one we're getting is, I think, a little bit bigger than that. So the beginning of the project, you see the razor ribbon, and then there's a little area there that's fenced in. That was the city of San Marcos had put in a pumping system there. When Palomar tank went in, they were using it to irrigate and get the brush growing again after all the excavation. That's been abandoned for a long time. So we needed to remove that. And then we needed to remove the barbed wire and the razor ribbon along the fence line because the snorkel on the firefighting helicopter could get caught on that. So we don't want a chopper crashing. So all of that got removed. So here you see where we had a fencing company come out to take down the razor ribbon, and we would have done that ourselves, but we also needed to move the chain link from the outside of the poles to the inside. So if the snorkel swings over, it's not going to get caught on one of those poles and yank it out of the sky as well. So we moved all of that. Construction crew removed all of the appurtenances that were in there, and we'll do some filling and paving before we're done. So this was the connection to the 24-inch CMLC main going into Palomar tank with an 8-inch PVC line and an isolation valve there at the connection point. So we did have to bring in a welder to get this put in. They ran the line over and then stubbed it up so that this will be the connection point, and where the concrete pad was getting ready to be poured. And then this is the concrete pad. We had a company come out and do this because we had to make sure we could handle the weight load. So the empty container is around 5,000-6,000 pounds, but when it's full, it's just under 50,000 pounds with all the water in it. So we had to make sure that was designed, and engineering helped us with that to get the correct design for this concrete pad to withstand the weight.
So is that air gap?
Yes, it has to be air gapped. Yep. Yeah, and that's part of the design of the helipod. So Cal Fire, the next steps, they'll have to deliver the helipod to the site. And while Ryan was giving his presentation, Jason Nailing with San Marcos Fire texted me the helipod will be delivered Monday morning.
Oh, great.
So Monday at 9. And I've been taking these photos like you're seeing here. So as the things progress, eventually I'm sure Chris or probably Alicia will put something together, slideshow or short movie.
And then how do they use the pod?
So just going on with what we have to do next, once we anchor it, we're going to connect the water pipes to the tank. And then all of that will be controlled through our SCADA system. So the operators during a Santa Ana, they're going to fill it, but they can fill it and drain it remotely. We'll probably just, when we get into the hot summer months, we'll probably just put water in it and leave it there. What will happen is the helicopter will drop its snorkel in there. The most of any helicopter can draw is 5,000, and that's a big, huge, SDG&E Sky Crane one. Most of them are 1,500 to 2,000 gallons. So they'll fill the chopper, and then it's immediately going to start refilling as soon as they pull the water down. It's kind of like a float valve in your toilet, really. It's just kind of sit there. So it's going to automatically operate until we shut off the valve, either on site or remotely. We have discussed, once the helipod is there and we've anchored it, we're probably going to go ahead and just fill it with water, because we're not going to be done with all of the things that we have to do to get it up and running for them. We put 5,000 or 6,500 gallons of water in there. If a fire breaks out before we're done, they can still use it.
Perfect.
And we could manually fill it if we had to, as long as it doesn't put staff in danger.
Have they ever used any of our open reservoirs?
They've pulled out of South Lake several times over the years.
Right.
Yeah, they have. So we had an old open reservoir until the year 2000 in Twin Oaks, and I think they dipped out of that once, and that was drinking water. We were not happy about that, because that was actually drinking water.
And Ed's informed me from going through this process, they actually don't like pulling out of South Lake or open waters because their pumps could get clogged from debris. So
Yeah,
prefer
there's
this
strainers even, just if there's floating algae or debris, they'll get clogged. So Mar actually has quite a bit of algae too, not nearly as much as it used to, but they'll still use it if they have to, but they're trying to get these up throughout the county. There was a Orange County Water District was the first one, and then Rainbow was the first in San Diego County. And I think Rainbow's getting ready to put in a second one. And they're who I met with to work on this one.
So this has been a collaboration between with Vallecitos and the city of San Marcos and Cal Fire. So our costs are going to be shared with the city of San Marcos. They're providing some things in kind, but at the end of the day, it's going to be about a 50-50 split. So it's really a partnership. And as Ed mentioned, there's going to be some media outlet, and we're going to probably have a ribbon cutting ceremony per se.
Yep. Yeah, we'll at least get the water connected and the final paving and cleanup performed before we do any kind of a ribbon cutting. We may not have the SCADA system all the way hooked up. It just depends on how long that's going to take us, especially the programming. But we'll definitely, it'll be a media event, because it's a big deal to have these in the county. There are other agencies now that are working with Cal Fire to start putting them. They wanted to put another one in San Elijo. There's really no place for us to have one there. So what's most likely going to happen, they have these on trailers as well, so they can be mobile. And they'll probably put one at Station 4, which is at the top of the hill there, Double Peak. And then us, Vallecitos, we will pick a few spots where they could set it up and not destroy our system. They could hook up through a fire hose, because most of these are designed just to be hooked with a fire hose, and we're making it a permanent installation at Palmer Tank. Any questions? That's all I have for you.
Thank you.
All right. Development Services Project Update.
So similar to the capital facilities update, every twice a year, we bring the development service update to the board. With that, I'll hand it over to Jason and Elizabeth to do the development services update. So basically, it's instead of doing this annually, I believe we do it twice a year.
Yes.
Yep. So the board last time I saw was a good 6 months ago.
Okay, good afternoon, Engineering and Equipment Committee. As James mentioned, I'm here to provide a development update on projects we're working on. We'll go over this revised exhibit, which we've seen before, and then I have a couple of slides to show you on a project currently in construction that you might have seen just driving around town. So as a reminder, this exhibit, projects shown in green on the map and in the table are projects in construction. Plans in pink are in plan check, and projects shown in blue are in planning phase. So zooming in, taking a closer look at projects in construction, this table shows the project name, type, how many dwelling units, and then the remaining water and sewer cap fees we expect to collect for these projects. In this table, anything shown with 0 for water and sewer EDUs either means the customer already paid their cap fees or we're not serving that project water or sewer. So projects in construction, we estimate another about $800,000 in water cap fees that we'll be collecting and about $2 million for sewer cap fees. I anticipate collecting cap fees for these projects in construction in the near future, in the next several months up to maybe the next year or two. Projects in plan check, we have about $3.2 million worth of water cap fees estimated and $9.3 million in sewer. These projects are going to construction, some of them soon, some of them can take a couple years, so it could take anywhere from 1 to 3 years to collect cap fees for projects currently in plan check. Projects in planning. These projects, they don't always move forward to plan check and construction. Sometimes they kind of die out, whether they're not feasible to move forward for various reasons. The projects that do move forward to plan check and construction, I would estimate we might collect cap fees in maybe 3 to 5 years. We have estimated $13.5 million in water cap fees and about almost $31 million in sewer cap fees for projects in the planning phase. Project that we'll highlight after we stop sharing this screen is this University District North City Phase A and North City Drive utility relocations. Kind of an interesting project in construction that we'll go over here shortly, unless anybody has questions on any projects shown on our exhibit. Nothing? Okay, photos. Okay, so if anybody's been driving around town in the vicinity of the Twin Oaks area, University District, Cal State San Marcos, you may have noticed a couple of cranes that mobilized a couple weeks ago. You can't miss them driving on Highway 78. So kind of just wanted to talk with you and share what this project is. It's kind of interesting to have cranes this size on site in San Marcos. What's being constructed is a mixed-use residential project. It's really dense. It's one of the projects that are constructed property line to property line. It is 464 residential units with mixed-use commercial on the first couple of floors, and it has a 2-story underground parking structure. So you can see in the photo on the right, it's kind of hard to tell at this scale, but excavation for the parking structure is probably about complete. Shoring is installed for excavation of the structure. Kind of hard to tell, but if you could see trucks or heavy equipment down there, it kind of gives you the scale of the size of this project. 12 stories. This first phase is phase A. It will be 12-story building. And to accommodate that The area shown here highlighted in blue along North City Drive is this first phase, and everything north of North City Drive, let me get my laser going. So North City Drive and south of this utility corridor here, all of this is the underground parking structure we just looked at. So access into the structure will come from this roundabout on June Way. So we're having to relocate this existing sewer, and we also have water coming through this corridor. So this sewer is being removed, and this sewer I'm highlighting here in North City Drive is also being removed. And the sewer here in North City Drive is actually being relayed to drain west rather than east, with a sewer main extension to Twin Oaks Drive. So we're actually rerouting sewer to get it out of the way for excavation of this parking garage. So we also have water here. So this water's been removed, just created a dead end here in this utility corridor. So there's a lot of utility relocations being performed by the contractor for this excavation.
So the buildings, is it commercial like on the bottom floor?
Yes, commercial on the bottom floor. Here's a rendering of the architect, from the architect, the project. They anticipate it being completed in 2025. And this is just the first phase. The next phase, which is going to be even another block to the west along Twin Oaks, I think is actually anticipated to have more dwelling units, residential units, and more floors. So something kind of cool, just wanted to share that with you in case you're wondering what the cranes were, if you've seen them as you've been driving around town.
It's interesting. When I was president of the chamber in '81, we had a retreat out in Palm Springs. And I said, in the future, we will be a teeming metropolis. And I had people snickering in the audience, you know. Well, 12-story building, I think we've arrived.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, any questions?
No, very
All right,
good.
thank you.
Very much. All right. Next, the assessment management plan project update.
Yeah, so as the board's aware, the district has been embarking in a full asset management program. With that, the first steps of it is really developing an asset management plan. We're going through the process. This is going to be an update. There'll be other workshops to present the asset management plan to the first board, to the whole board. But I think this will be an update of the actual asset management plan itself, the progress of it, and kind of what some of the plan entails. With that, I'll hand it over to our asset management supervisor, Eric Bennett, and our district engineer, Jason Hubbard.
Good afternoon, Engineering Equipment Committee. I'm here to provide an update on the asset management plan, the draft plan that we have received for the district. We begin by reviewing the goals of the AMP, and then review the process and tasks for developing the AMP. And then we'll review each task in a little bit more detail with specific examples that are pulled directly from the draft version of the AMP to give you some examples of what the final product is going to look like. All right, so what is an AMP and what are its goals? An asset management plan is a tactical plan for managing an organization's infrastructure and other assets to deliver an agreed standard of service. Typically, an asset management plan will cover more than just a single asset. It's taking a system-wide approach with the goal of creating facilities and infrastructure that are reliable, proactively maintained, adequately funded, and anticipating future demands. I'm sure we all remember that from previous slides. And here is another one that I'm sure you will remember from previous presentations. This is just a visual representation of the development process for creating an AMP. The district, along with our consultant, Black & Veatch, went through each of these tasks, which involve data requests, multiple workshops with district and staff, and many meetings to verify findings and outcomes. So with this brief review of what asset management plan is and how it is developed, we'll get right into the tasks. So beginning with levels of service. Levels of service are the goals set by the district, and once identified, can be monitored for progress and outcome. Defining the levels of service sets the bar for the objectives of the district, the ones that we want to achieve, and it helps us provide the basis to monitor these progress towards achieving them. With this in mind, how does the district compare with other utilities regarding levels of service? As you can see, this chart here shows the results of an AWWA survey representing more than 500 similarly sized utilities from across the United States. While the district did not participate in this survey, because it was in 2015, after review of our service levels, you can see how we compare. As you can see, we are right in the middle of the pack with having some service levels developed and documented. In other words, our staff knows what they do and why they do it, but we just haven't been the best at documenting it. On this slide, you'll see some of the fundamental service levels or levels of service recommended from the asset management plan. Many of these the district already monitors, such as A1, 100% compliance with water quality and regulations, or D1, a AAA bond rating. However, there are others we may need to consider for implementation, such as G3, considering the new fleet electrification mandate from the state, reducing our carbon emissions to less than 2007 standards or levels. Seeing these recommendations gives us the opportunity to take a hard look at our goals and our priorities and to see if we are doing everything we can to meet and accomplish them. Now we'll briefly cover creating an asset registry and categorizing our assets. Excuse me. The purpose of the asset registry is to enable the district to know the status, procurement date, location, price, depreciation, and current value of each asset. So once the registry is developed, the assets were categorized into asset classes. And this categorization occurred to assist the district and our consultant with performing the condition assessments in future parts of the AMP. And excuse me, as you can see here, this chart shows the categorization for all of our asset types. Again, this is from the draft version of the AMP, and some of these numbers are not correct, which we're sending back to them for comments, but I wanted to give you a visual of what we'd be expecting on the asset management plan. Next on the task list is to determine remaining useful life and performing desktop condition assessments. For our assets, the desktop assessments were accomplished by reviewing our past assessment projects, considering practices we've implemented in Maximo, applying industry standards, and through multiple workshops with district staff. Remaining useful life was determined by using the formula shown. So what that is, you would take your estimated service life, you would minus the age of the current asset, and then you would divide it by the service life again, and it gives you the percent of remaining useful life anywhere between, 10 and 100 or whatever. So, and when you get that 80% service life, that's assigned a number, and then that is used in subsequent sections for likelihood of failure analysis. So all of these lead into the next one, to the final output. On this side, you'll see the likelihood of failure and consequence of failure results from the district's water mains. I chose to only put water main results on here because it would have we'd be here for a few hours going through it all. So didn't want to do that to you. As well as the business risk exposure for water mains. These were determined through discussions with district staff and Black and Veatch, establishing criteria for evaluation, reviewing data provided by the district, and calculated for each asset by multiplying the likelihood of failure and consequence of failure to achieve the business risk exposure. The intent of this linear and vertical risk analysis is to develop a funding strategy for immediate, high, medium, and low priority assets based on risk prioritization. And what those are, the immediate, high, medium, and low, those correlate with the colors that you would see. So if you look at the water main business risk results, the red would be the immediate water mains that have immediate water mains that have a high likelihood of failure and pose the most risk to the district. And what this shows here, this is actually from the asset management plans, that 2.7% of our water mains are actually in that category right now.
So as the committee can see, those would be the high priority water mains that we'd actually take action on, whether it's condition assessment or full replacement or some combination of.
So continuing with business risk exposure, this is a visual representation of the business risk exposure laid out across the water mains and color coded. This helps us to visualize and prioritize where we could possibly do those condition assessments and talk about projects with O&M and CIP about getting these replaced if they're already known to have problems. And one thing I wanted to note here came up as we were analyzing this. How do you do the laser pointer? There we go. This section of main right here, this is an 18-inch CMLC on Reese Road. This water main goes under, I want to say 20 homes directly under. And it has been a concern of our O&M staff for years and has been on the list to have a condition assessment done for years. And it's on this year's CIP budget to have that assessment done. But
Wait a little longer. They need to do it.
yeah,
Well, it
It'll
goes,
tell you itself.
yeah,
it kind of goes between homes, and the garages have kind of been built adjacent or on top of.
yeah.
One garage is put there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it just seeing this the high that main in the high category justifies O&M's our operations and maintenance risk or worries about that pipeline, and also adds a little bit of justification for the accuracy of these analysis. Okay, I don't think
So it's typically the higher risk is associated with large transmission mains, is that?
Yeah, and also, actually, it's, help me out here. There's more than that. There's
Yeah.
this cost of repair, the consequence of failure,
Sure.
social traffic.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a number
Yeah.
of categories, I think, criteria that they use. I
Yeah,
can't remember, the number of categories is,
on this one, it was 20, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 20 different data sets they put into it. It's a location, soil type, population density.
break data.
Mhm.
Oh,
Material pipe, age of pipe,
Yeah.
all those things, and they're with different weighting factors.
All right, now we're to the meat and potatoes of the asset management plan, kind of the final outcome of it, what we want to see. So, you like that one? So this slide shows the financial analysis out to 2096. So that's a 75-year forecast for the water system as a whole. So this is including pump stations, pressure stations, tanks, water mains, kind of everything, just to put it all on one graph. So what you're seeing here, let me get the laser pointer again. What you're seeing here on this chart is this gray line represents the line we are predicted to go at if we do not have any proactive replacement of our assets. As you can see, it increases with your risk score on this side, and then your spend on this side over time, and just keeps going up. So what Black & Veatch has done, they ran 3 budget scenarios for this analysis. One is based on the asset model, and that is this gold line, and that is basically if we could spend without cap, anything we could based off of the renewal and replacement schedule that was built, that this line right here, the gold line, is where we would be at over time. And if we go on the asset model analysis, over time, we come up with a 28% reduction in risk. The next analysis they did was a $20 million per year spend. And over time on this one, as you can see, it goes through and it creates a 22% risk reduction. But the problem with both of those, you'll notice that the spending down here, it still creates quite a bit of peaks and really high spending on a few years, which may be unattainable over time. And then the fifth year, or the third analysis is the $5 million a year. which is the dark blue line. And over time, that creates a 16% reduction in risk. But as you can see, it also has a more even spend over the years. But the thing about this one is that it only takes into account the assets that are in that high, immediate or high priority, the red and the maroon sections of that chart, and the rest of them would basically run to failure. So you're spending money, but you're also just letting kind of other things go so you can tackle the immediate things in front of you.
And just to clarify, is it's a living document over time. So as some of those assets that are, can you go back to the table that shows the different colors?
Mhm.
Yeah, so as some of them are in the orange or green, over time, they may, not all of them because of their location, but over time, they'll naturally move up into a higher risk category. As they move up into the higher risk category, we're addressing them at that point. Some of them will never move up and literally be ran to failure because they're in an area where there's not a lot of consequence or not a lot of risk.
So is there an optimum amount to spend or recommendation?
Go back to the table. We're actually commenting on this right now. I know that we've asked for a couple other scenarios. When we come to the full board, you're probably going to see a graph that's similar, but the numbers will be different.
Mhm.
But we've also asked for a little different, I've asked for a little different analysis and it hasn't hit the consultant yet. So the district will end up asking for a combination of, clarification of assumptions, especially with the ductile iron pipe,
Mhm.
which also may change some of the scenarios. So if the bars will be different and the percentages will be different by the time it comes to the full board, but as far as the flavor,
Mhm.
this is what you're going to see. Just the numbers will be different. So once we have that and Black and Veatch in the room, we can probably answer your question more directly. But until then, right now, it's still work in progress.
Mhm.
Yeah, but ultimately, we're going to be looking at these different strategies, and similar to kind of what Ed presented in the metrics, we're looking at goals. Can we achieve those goals? Are they realistic? What are the budgeting constraints? What are the staffing constraints, and trying to balance that out? So that's like James says, that's what we're evaluating right now.
And there's been kind of a theme for, I know today's been a longer engineering and equipment committee, but there's been a theme with it because as we go through understanding what our capital outlay needs to be to meet our growth projections, we're also going to start dovetailing in what our asset management, renewal and replacement schedule is going to be. And that'll end up trickling down into how do we best manage that. At the end of the day, it's going to be a full board decision on, what level of service we want to keep and what that looks like as far as costs and different strategies to achieve it.
Yeah, and similar to like a master plan, you've got this document becomes sort of validates, it justifies your spending levels, your staffing levels. It creates a really good nexus.
But overall, the analysis has been I've been pretty happy with the analysis because we're in good shape. If $5 million a year, obviously the numbers will change, or even less than that, produces a significant reduction in risk, and we take care of both red and that magenta or purple color, which is very high and high risk, and we can maintain that, and then supplement it with other tools like condition assessment. That's in good shape, and a lot of that has to do with what Ed's crew has been doing for at least the last couple decades or so, and basically doing preventative maintenance and doing asset management without a documented plan, just from the experience and the leadership that they've shown over there. And so it's put us in a pretty good condition. That coupled with the fact that our system isn't that old. So doing it now is really prudent because we could get ahead of it before we're ever behind any 8 ball.
So previous master planning efforts, we've never addressed replacement.
Yeah.
This is that component.
Yeah, every single master plan we've done has been a growth related documentary. So every project in there has been triggered by growth. Now the good news is engineering has done a good job of conditioning the development appropriately to replace existing pipe to accommodate growth. So we don't have 2 lines going down a road, which is double the maintenance for operations, double the asset costs and renewal and replacement for us. And so, which sounds like a very simple, logical thing, but if you look at a lot of other cities and agencies around the county, and you look at especially in main roads, or you look at even our older systems along main roads like Twin Oaks and San Marcos Boulevard, and even some of the smaller roads, there's multiple water lines and multiple sewer lines in those streets. You look at all of our newer systems, you don't see that anymore. And that's a change that we made starting in after the 2008 master plan.
All right. So one more for you. Sewer. The graph and analysis are basically the same. The 3 budget scenarios, the asset model, the 20 million a year and 5 million a year, each producing a different risk reduction over time, and also a different spending graph over time. So again, as James pointed out, or Assistant General Manager Gumpel pointed out, whatever, that we did request different scenarios, that these will change when the final version comes in. But like I said, just want to give you a visual understanding of what we'd be getting on the real plan or on the final plan. Okay. So with the draft version of the asset management plan in hand, we're currently in comment phase and reviewing it. We are checking for clarity, their math, general structure and organization of the plan to ensure that it fits our needs and what we wanted to see out of it. And once our comments are sent back to Black and Beach and the final app is provided, we will prepare a full presentation for the board of directors to ensure that everyone is fully informed.
All right.
And now, any questions?
No, I think that was excellent.
Okay.
Very good. Next item, water system.
So I'm gonna let you introduce this one, Jason. So this one is basically, I'm gonna turn this one over to the district engineer to start going over, but it's, go ahead, just.
Yeah, so this is just kind of dovetailing off of the asset management plan. Working with Eric, we had an opportunity to work with a vendor to sort of do an independent assessment of the risk priority specifically for our water system. So it's going to do a couple things. It's going to validate some of the things that we're finding in the asset management plan, and also going to give us a little bit of a roadmap for where we should focus our CIPs in the future. It's a good opportunity to be a little bit innovative using AI technology, which I'm sure at conferences you're seeing a lot of those presentations. So the price was right. We budgeted for it, and the approved budget, the board approved that. So this is something that we're going to move forward with, and it's also going to be a tactical initiative that you'll see probably at the next board meeting that the general manager will present. So here's a sneak peek of what we're going to be doing.
So we will be doing a condition assessment program with Bracta. Bracta is a software as a service company, and they've built an AI, a machine learning program that specifies in water main condition assessments. And when the data is input, it produces likelihood of failure scores and can help prioritize pipes for further assessment or replacement, as was said earlier. And again, the big keyword here, artificial intelligence, and because it is an AI and it's using the big data sets, that means it's gathering information not only from us but from data points from every company that's put into it, and using a large set of data points to add to the data we're putting into it, which we'll go into in a minute.
Yeah, so just as a side, we mentioned for the asset management plan, they're using about 25 data points, correct? And then in this analysis, they're using much more. And I believe the name of the software, it's Skynet, right? Is that what?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
just double checking.
Oh,
Skynet is the name of the software. Sorry.
Great. So how does the machine work?
Well, I guess Before you make, I gotta say, I'm dead set with AI because it's gonna destroy humanity. I don't understand the founders of it are even saying that, so why don't we listen to them?
Yes.
Anyway,
Well, luckily, we're not giving over control of the system, so the operators are still operating the system. This is just purely for analysis
don't harm the
purposes only.
computers.
Slippery slope. It starts somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it is exciting because it is AI and it is the hot topic these days. But as mentioned before, it's utilizing data from 125 different utilities that have already participated in it. And that equates to over 180,000 miles of pipe and 580,000 specific main break. It has all that information and data stored in it that I can analyze the trends from. And on top of that, as we've already said, 150 data points instead of typical 25 that you would see. It's able to analyze much more than we possibly could. So our part of it is to submit the data request to them. So it's shape files from our GIS systems, past main break information, which includes a GIS main break layer that we maintain. And also we have a main break Excel sheet, a little old school, but that goes back to 2007. So it has quite a bit of information that we can provide them, along with system pressures, min, max, and static pressures and parcel data. Once we provide them with our data, they load it into their model and they provide us results within 4 to 8 weeks. And one of the great things about this is it makes updates easy. So if we continue with this over the years, we can give them fresh information, say capital improvements replaces a large water main on San Marcos Boulevard, or they're planning on replacing the Tres Amigos line. We can give them the updated plans and data, and it goes into the model and it readjusts the likelihood of failure for the system. So it's pretty neat.
So when it takes over, it'll know exactly where to shoot the rig. Yeah, just what we need.
Yep. Great. So the goals of the project are to do a district-wide real-time likelihood of failure identification. As we've said, that would be used for future leak assessments or condition assessments throughout the district, to help identify future projects and to increase system knowledge. Maybe to identify something that we never thought was an issue before. All right, so where are we on this one? So we had our kickoff meeting already, so we're up and running on this one. We've received the data request and we're processing it, and we're down to the last bit of data, which is the pressure data. It's becoming a little bit tricky to get, but we're getting it. But once we get that to them in 4 to 8 weeks, we should have our access to the system and our data analyzed to see the likelihood of failure and condition assessments of our district in real time.
Great.
Just the pressure information come out of the SCADA system.
It's coming out of our GIS, so it's just taking a little bit of time to get. They have pressure points for each of our meters in the system, which is quite a bit of data. So it's just taking a bit to organize it.
Yeah, we have elevation data on GIS, so we could calculate the elevation between.
Mhm.
Yeah, and this is a pilot program, so we're kind of looking at this independently. There are other utilities that use this through a subscription process, and they can update that data, daily, weekly, monthly. Right now, we're just looking at it as a pilot. Maybe this is something that we want to invest in every 2 years, every 3 years, every 5 years to kind of analyze the system. So there's options there, but this is a good pilot project. And I really appreciate Eric and his team. And I always like to remember the committee that Eric's asset management department is a team of 3, our CMMS planner, our GIS technician, and Eric. So they've got a lot of workload, and looking at pilot projects is really sort of above and beyond, and really a testament to Eric's dedication to the district and what we're trying to those long-term goals with the asset management plan and stuff that we're trying to achieve. So
Well, good. Well, thank you.
Yeah, we're planning on creating a fake contact for the AI and naming it John Connor to see if it still works. But if it doesn't, then we know we've gone too far.
Yeah, very good. I think that was the last item, but I did want to ask Ed. I voted no for that program on the electrification infrastructure program.
Right.
If we have to begin to start worrying about electric vehicles in 2025, do we have vehicles that are going to have to be purchased around that time that will be electrified?
It's actually 2024, so beginning in
Oh,
January.
even better.
Beginning in January 2024, we'll be required to purchase 50% of our purchases that meet the fleet requirements, the GVR weight, GVW rather. They have to be 50% regardless. So unfortunately, that does not include our pool vehicles like the Explorers, anything that lightweight. They don't consider that. So, and I also asked our consultants, so the F-250s are considered 10,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's anything above 8,500.
Yep.
So I asked this, well, what if we don't need a F-250, but we can get away with an F-150? So we replace that F-250 with an F-150 Lightning. Does that count towards our 50/50? It does not. He says, all you've done is now reduced your fleet by one vehicle because it's an F-150, not an F-250. But we don't even have the charging infrastructure right now for that. The director, Tiffany Boyd Hodgson's mentioned, I hope we're not purchasing, just out of spite and getting all the vehicles replaced. And that's not true. We have had a lot in the last 10 years. It's the previous method of purchasing vehicles was run them to failure. That doesn't work so well for us because we have to have reliable vehicles in order to keep our customer service levels up. So it just so happens that right now we're relatively caught up on most of our vehicles. We're issuing purchase orders for the ones that are in this year's budget that the board approved for this fiscal year. And we've been told that as long as we have ordered the vehicle and we have a written purchase order for that, it counts towards our 2023 purchases. It doesn't go against us for 2024, even though we may not get it until the end of 24 or even in 25. We finally got a couple of vehicles that we ordered in 2020. So that at least the state is acknowledging that as long as you have placed the order in this calendar year, it doesn't count towards 24.
So if we don't have to replace a vehicle in 2024, then we don't have to worry about electrification of any vehicle.
It'll be a while before we have the charging infrastructure to do it anyways. And I had mentioned before that if we purchase electric vehicles now, we're buying expensive paperweights.
Yeah,
because we can't charge them.
Exactly.
And most of the equipment that we need, they don't make.
Right.
So if you remember in this year's budget, there's we had to roll it over another year, but there's a large utility truck that's around $200,000+. They don't make them. So they make trucks that are big enough, but they don't make them where we can modify them to carry all the tools. And that's the other problem that some of the agencies are complaining about is the batteries to run a large truck like that means we can't carry half the tools because we'll be overweight for the roads.
Yeah.
And so it's a conundrum.
So the good news is the state is looking at a bill right now that clarifies the exemption process or the temporary variance process due to those things. I mean, it's a chicken or egg argument. Basically the regulators are saying if we make the law, the vehicles will come. If you don't make the law, there's no incentive to make the vehicles. But they also are starting to acknowledge that there's going to be no vehicles available. We can't even meet the statutes if we wanted to.
Exactly.
The big thing on that scoped item is we have to plan it out, including phasing in the infrastructure, which is one of your concerns that you brought up at the board meeting, because we want to make sure we do it in an economical way instead of building something and then having to tear it down and rebuilding it because now we need a larger infrastructure need. So there's no way that the district will be able to afford, or it would be logical pursue building charging infrastructure for every fleet vehicle. And we don't need it and it doesn't make sense. But what we don't understand is the number and the type of chargers do we need. So for example, some of our pool vehicles, we may be able to get away with one charging infrastructure for 2 or 3 or 4 of them because of the use, but meter readers and inspection, they may need charging infrastructure every day because of the miles they put on. Fleet vehicles and other vehicles in Ed's shop, it could be a mixed bag, depending on what they need and the capacity of the battery. So if it's anticipated this heavy vehicle has this humongous capacity and we need a large charge, it's great that 2 or 3 could share one, but it takes 48 hours to charge it.
Yeah.
You know, so those are things that the consultant's gonna help us figure out.
I'm again it.
There will be some exemptions for emergency vehicles, and then we have to meet those requirements. One of the webinars I attended, Aqua, was one of the callers in complaining, as well as a few of the other large agencies. And they weren't joking. The state regulators, I think, thought they were, but they were saying, what are we supposed to do? We're out on an emergency break and they're out there for 24 hours and they're running their lights and they're running their air compressor and everything else, and it runs out of juice. Now we're towing out a diesel generator to charge this electric emergency vehicle. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
It sends the wrong message. And so there will be some exemptions for emergency vehicles that need to remain on internal combustion
And-
engine.
You know, it's so crazy because we've got over 1 million cubic feet of natural gas just laying there. And it's a renewable energy. It's a clean energy. Why, you know, the nutcakes are pushing these electric vehicles? Because there was just an article I read from the CEO of Ford, who took a Ford F10,
It was
tried to go,
it was the F-150
yeah.
Lightning, yeah.
and had to abandon it because it wouldn't charge.
Well, he didn't have enough charging stations.
Yeah.
I know they're working with Tesla to be able to
Oh, yeah.
convert some of
be able
them,
to
so they'll be able
get
to use
their
Tesla.
charging
Yeah, 'cause
facilities.
they have a much better.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense. It's for emergency services, an alternate fuel source makes the most sense.
Yeah.
We should have been exempted out of the whole thing.
The whole regulation is to convert the drayage vehicles, so the vehicles that pick up product from the ports and deliver it inland. Those are the ones they're after. They just looped us in.
Right.
Public agencies.
They
Well,
threw us in.
you have to comply because you're a public agency. So we're just going to loop you into this, and it's been a nightmare from day one.
Just doesn't make sense.
It will be a pain in the ass on that topic.
The other thing is emerging battery technologies, you know, it's the solid
gonna
state
change.
batteries that are coming in about 3 years are gonna totally change the industry.
Well, that could be the answers for the GVW issue, because that you could get more density out of those solid state batteries.
Per
Yeah,
unit weight.
per unit weight. I don't, but it's still not gonna get there. You're still gonna sacrifice, or you're gonna have vehicles that don't qualify for highway loading, so you technically can't take them on the freeway. So, or on any public road.
So it'll be interesting. See how this plays out.
All right. If there's anything further, if not, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Wonderful.